Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 1 o'clock Central. We are here for our chat, our conversation, our review of procrastination, where it comes from, why it affects us. I'm sitting here in a lovely Radisson hotel room in great McAllen, Texas, and looking forward to working with you today. So I think it's just time to get going here. So let's roll. All right. Good to see everybody here. Glad to have you join us. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of procrastination, and I do have the ability to see comments from you. So if you want to go ahead and post some comments, I'd love to hear from you as we go through this. So today we're going to talk about where procrastination comes from, why you have it, and there's two types of procrastination. We're going to talk about the two types of procrastination and where those come from. So good to see you. Hola, amigo, to you too. And let's get rolling. If you have any questions, you just let me know. So let's, as they say where I'm from, let's get started. So my name is Wally Bressler, as you know, and I'm the co-founder of Phone Sales Secrets. Thanks to all of you for joining me here today. A lot of you folks are in my Phone Sales Secrets group, and I see right here, I see that your stutter. We're going to talk about that, and hopefully after I explain everything today, you got to watch us to the end because there's two sides to this. Hopefully I'll be able to give you some relief, and I'm going to give everybody a chance to get a free 15-minute phone call with me just to talk a little bit more about their situation. So let's roll here, okay? So I want to introduce you to my team. I've got a crack team of people who I rely upon very heavily. So there's me. I'm the co-founder of Phone Sales Secrets. I started in March of 2021. I help salespeople and entrepreneurs conquer all sorts of reluctance, car reluctance, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, and other things of that nature. So that's kind of, what we're here today to talk about a little bit. This guy's a real estate expert, been in the real estate business since 1998. And, I've had the good fortune of working with some of the top real estate agents in the country. And, in addition to that, as part of that, I've actually conducted over 40,000 live trainings, one-on-one coaching calls, video trainings, and whatnot. So I've really had the chance to learn a lot about what it takes to be successful, not just as a real estate agent, but also as a person. And a lot of the stuff that I teach my entrepreneurs, my clients, and salespeople, I'm going to be able to share with you whether you're a salesperson or not today, okay? I was super fortunate to whoopsie, sorry about that. I don't know why it stopped sharing. My bad. Present, share screen. Let's go back to this here. My bad. So I was fortunate enough to have a book come out this year, thanks to very kind friends and family members and clients of mine. My book was actually a bestseller in 4 different categories on Amazon. So thank you again to everybody who helped make that a reality for me. In addition to that, I have been helping people on the phone with a variety of different strategies to be super good on the phone. Prospecting, objection handling, progressive profiling, NLP, and other strategies to go ahead and help folks, really master becoming great on the phone. And then lastly, last year or the beginning of this year, I was voted or nominated as actually one of the top 125 people in the real estate industry that get results. So I just want to give you a little bit of information about me. Some of you folks, hello, super pumped. Hello, howdy, hello, hey. It only says Facebook user, but hello, everybody. So I'm assuming you guys can see the slides. So we're just going to get rolling here. So look, you're here because you want to find out what procrastination is and how to stop it. So did a bunch of research, did a lot of research on myself. I was a world-class procrastinator for as long as I can remember, even from the time I was a little kid, putting things off, not doing things that I was supposed to do, homework literally to the last. Hi, Jill, good to see you. I would put homework off to the last minute. I mean, my mother used to punish me for not getting my homework done or turning it in late. Didn't really matter. Whatever it was, I waited till the last minute. And, I actually only found out the last few years why I was such a crazy procrastinator. And we're going to find out a little bit more about that today. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So procrastination, pretty straightforward, right? Procrastination is the act of delaying or putting off tasks until the last minute or past their deadline. Some researchers define procrastination as a form of self-regulation failure characterized by the irrational delay of tasks despite potentially negative consequences. Okay, sometimes that's called cognitive dissonance, really, where there's a disconnect in our brain as a means of protecting us. But I want you to just take special note of the form of self-regulation failure there, because it's going to be the crux of a lot of why a lot of us have procrastination. Okay, so let's talk about this. A little bit of research here. According to Joseph Ferrari, 20% of individuals identify themselves as chronic procrastinators. I was a chronic procrastinator. I took forever to do whatever I needed to do whenever I needed to do it to get it done. Period. End of discussion. Absolutely. I've been meaning to order your book. Really, I'm such a procrastinator. It's very kind of you. So hopefully we can cure you of that and get you to the point where you buy it. If not, I completely understand. The other thing is study mode. Student psyche report states that distraction, meaning people getting distracted by things, was found to be the most common reason for procrastination at 48%. This is followed by the feeling of being overwhelmed and unable to decide where to start. So that's the second half of procrastination. Okay. So if you are like these people, like I was, this is probably resonating with you. I want you to know that procrastination, in most cases, thank you for those kind of words. In most cases, procrastination is not your fault. Okay, it is your responsibility to fix, but it's not your fault, and I'm going to help you understand why today. Let's see here. So let's talk about the four main types of procrastinators. You let me know which one you are. Okay, so there's the lucky optimists, believe that everything will work out, and it often does. So nothing bad happens from procrastinating, or nothing detrimental happens to the point where you're completely or negatively impacted. Sometimes you get lucky, right? The overloaded, they have too much on their plate and end up failing at the task. Not saying no to people, not having boundaries has a huge impact on being overloaded, meaning we take on too many tasks. We don't say no to people because we don't want to let them down, because we have a strong need for approval. So that happens. Some people, Lisa, yep. Some people are like, absolutely, they can't start, they can't get moving. That's a big one. There's the pleasure-seeking avoider, which avoids the painful tasks to enjoy a pleasure at the moment. These are the people who are like I was, which is, I want immediate gratification, and I feel good about what I'm doing here. I'm just going to avoid the pain associated with that. And interestingly enough, oftentimes there's still pain at the end, but because it's so far away, or because we can't feel it, we don't see it as being painful. And so we're like, you know what, I'm just going to take my foot off the gas now and deal with it. And then lastly, the perfectionist, which is avoid starting or finishing a task. Right? Perfection is a guaranteed strategy for failure. Why? Because there's no such thing as perfect, right? So, if you're a perfectionist, you can always give yourself a way out, but you also don't finish anything as well. Does that make sense? So I think it's really important that you take that into consideration. Now, why do we procrastinate? So this is part one about why we procrastinate. There's 16 different reasons here, right? We don't know what needs to be done. We don't know how to do it. We don't want to do it. We don't care if it gets done. We don't care when something gets done. We're not in the mood, right? Not a lot of us, are in the habit of waiting to the last minute. We've kind of, created that mental model of just waiting all the time. Sometimes people think I work better under pressure. I put my back up against the wall, make it happen. Think we can finish it at the last minute. I know how many times I thought I'd have enough time to do something and didn't. Sometimes we lack the initiative to get started. By the way, I do not believe that there is such a thing as laziness. And I will talk to you here. Then we have to get all the ducks in a row before beginning. So that's kind of the getting ready to get ready. That's kind of a perfectionist model right there. Okay. Lacking initiative, forgetting, blaming sickness or poor health, making excuses, waiting for the right moment. Perfectionist, needing time to think about the task. Perfectionist, delaying one task in favor of another, or waiting for somebody else to do it. So, I'd love for you, if you're watching this, if you could type in there and just, if any of these resonate with you, just say yes or I. Just, put an I, put in a yes, just so I know that, this is resonating with you. Because for folks that procrastinate consistently, it's many of those things. And for me, it was many of those things. And I got behind on my taxes for several years. I mean, I had a lot of things happen that I just completely, didn't deal with. And as a result of that, there were some serious negative consequences. Thank you for those folks who said yes. So now, here's the other part of it. If it's a syntax error, if it's a syntax thing, if it's a not knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it, if it's one of these 16 things here, which are kind of more superficial reasons as to why you procrastinate, the process is actually pretty simple. Okay. You go ahead and number one, you plan your work, right? So go ahead, we're going to make a to-do list. Okay. And again, there's two parts to this. So just stay with me here, because this is the syntax thing. This is the order thing. This is how I structurally and physically overcome procrastination if I suffer from one of those 16 different elements, or some of them are one of them. Okay. Make a to-do list, right? You create the to-do list, always put due dates on it, right? When you write something down, it becomes a reality. It becomes something you can, get your head around, and then give each item a due date, because then you got to get it finished by a certain period of time. Sometimes we get overwhelmed. We try and take on the whole thing at once, and we can't really figure out how we're going to get it done. So if you turn things into bite-sized pieces, you take your outcomes, you break them into bite-sized pieces so that you keep from getting overwhelmed, like little baby steps. You can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. No distractions, television, kids. Put yourself in position to not be distracted. Either turn things off or get them out of the way before you start. A lot of times we don't set ourselves up for success. We just I'm going to go work on this right now. And then the next thing you know, dishes need to be done, and laundry needs to be done, and that pile of wood that's been sitting in the garage needs to be moved, and you got to call somebody, and you're moving stuff around on your desk. Get the distractions out of the way and just focus on what needs to be done. And lastly, celebrate even the smallest successes. I think, especially if we're perfectionists, we can't celebrate anything. If you're like a lot of the folks that I've worked with, like, you don't celebrate a success. You're like, oh, I can do better. I can do more. I could have done this. I could have done that. And what happens is you don't give yourself that sense of accomplishment. You don't tell yourself what you need to hear to say, hey, listen, I'm good, but I can get better. I'm great where I am, but I can get better. And that's super, super disempowering, because by not acknowledging progress, you're basically telling yourself that you're not good enough, and you're not giving yourself the impetus and the support you need to keep moving forward. So celebrate even the smallest successes to build momentum, to build self-esteem, and to create a strong sense of accomplishment. So if you suffer from self-esteem and it was, one of these things right here, that's right. If you suffer from procrastination and it's these not knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it sort of things, or you're kind of programmed in such a way that you can't get your whole heart into it because of one of these things, then this is your solution right here. This is how we do it right here. These things right here. You make a list, you chunk it down into bite-sized pieces, you eliminate distractions, you work at it, and as you even make the smallest amount of progress, you give yourself a pat on the back. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that the people are here, it's a deeper problem. I think you'd agree with me. If you agree with me, go ahead and say yes, say aye, because I think for a lot of people, I know for me, it's a much deeper problem, okay? And so here's why we procrastinate, part 2, and this is really probably why a lot of us procrastinate. I know this is why I procrastinated for the longest time, okay? So it could be a lack of belief in your abilities and what you can do. Like, you just don't believe that you can. For goodness sakes, I am just not doing well with this today. Please hold. Oy vey. Let's try this again, shall we? Chrome tab. Bingo. All right. So lack of belief in your abilities. You just don't believe that you can make something happen, right? And I'm going to explain where that comes from. You have fear, or you have anxiety. Anxiety that you're not going to get it done on time. Anxiety that you're not going to do it right. Anxiety that you're going to let somebody else down. Anxiety that you're going to let yourself down. Fear of not getting it done. Fear of being judged. Fear of embarrassment. Okay. Depression. If you get really depressed, and anxiety, if you suffer from anxiety and fear, you know what it's like when you are in full on anxiety and fear mode. You can't focus on anything. You're just trying to get yourself to self-regulate and to calm down, and you're continually in your head, looking backwards, looking around, just trying to get some relief. And it just keeps you from committing, because you're just so wound up in your emotions. Same thing with depression. If you're depressed, you're focusing on sadness. Geez, I just don't want to do this. I can't get this done. I'm just so emotionally overwhelmed. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. OCD really keeps people from moving forward, because you're continually trying to process the things you need to do to move to the next step, right? Continually washing hands, opening doors, closing doors, somebody who has to have something super, super clean before they move forward. Everything has to be perfect and neat and orderly before you move forward. And so the thing is that when you have OCD, none of those things will ever come to fruition. Nothing will ever be in the order that you want it to. Nothing will ever be clean enough, right? You'll never be able to work through those challenges, because you will always be focusing on the things that are the limiting steps that keep you from moving forward and not on solving the problem at hand. And then social anxiety, which is being embarrassed, right? Worrying about what people are thinking about you, and what people are going to think about you. You're really more concerned with people's image of you and thought of you, need for approval, need for acceptance. Okay, these are all perfectly normal things, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, lack of belief in your abilities, experience that. Fear and anxiety, 45 years of my life at least. Depression, several years. OCD, I used to count the stairs every time I walked up the stairs and went down the stairs. Okay, there were 13 stairs in my house. I counted them up and down every time. Social anxiety, always worried about what people were thinking of me while I was doing that. So what does this all mean, and how does this all, tie into, procrastination? Let's talk about this, okay? So most of you know my story. I'm just going to give you a quick Reader's Digest version here, okay? But most of you know my story, and my parents were good people. They just weren't good parents. They both were addicted to cigarettes. My dad drank a lot. They were both addicted to food. They were both overweight. They both had anxiety. Tough upbringing for both of them. Lots of physical abuse. I grew up in an Italian household. If you've ever been to an Italian household, you know that the three forms of communication are food, yelling, and hitting, right? And you get hit with whatever's closest to you: shoes, spoons, rulers, didn't matter. So, we had fairly abusive childhood in that respect. Food was a big motivator, but it was also used as a penalty. And I can remember back as early as 4, 5, and 6 of being put to bed without dinner. You're going to bed without food, and you can imagine the amount of anxiety that creates in you. So, I started having a binge eating disorder when I was 6 years old. I was sexually abused when I was 10. I started looking at pornography at one time I was 11. And by the time I was 12, I was having sex consistently. So, and then I was bullied throughout my childhood. So by the time I'm 13, 14, I'm addicted to food. I'm addicted to sex. I'm addicted to pornography. And I do not like myself. My self-esteem is crap. All right. I'm not happy. I don't feel good about who I am. I can't go to my parents with anything. They didn't teach me how to protect myself. They loved me, but they just didn't do the things they needed to foster that in me. So then when I turned 14, there was a decided shift. And then from being the person who was acted upon, I started acting upon. And I started having, a number of meaningless sexual relationships with women, because sex to me was, hey, I approve of you. You're attractive. I've blown over $5 million in my lifetime. I was a procrastinator. I missed so many opportunities in my life because I just procrastinated and did nothing. My weight ballooned to almost 480 pounds. I spent a year in federal prison. I was unfaithful to my wife 4 times. I literally ruined my relationship with all 4 of my children. I had to start from ground zero, building it back together. And then I stayed in a relationship for 4.5 years with a very toxic, mean, nasty, hurtful person because I wanted to be loved so badly. And then I found out that she was married the entire time we were together. And a few years ago, I decided I was going to take my own life because I had basically lived a life full of self-sabotage. And good things happen to me all the time. I mean, I got awards in high school. I graduated in upper 20%, 18% in high school. I went to a great college, played college football. I was making $100,000 a year by the time I was 28. I got married to, at the time, beautiful woman. I had 4 amazing kids. And yet everything that I did was to outrun the shame in my life. Okay. And so what I've learned is that procrastination comes from the fact that we create these hidden identities, these belief systems in ourselves that we are not worthy, that we are not good enough, that we don't deserve things, that we're not going to perform well. And that's where perfectionism comes in, right? We're perfectionists and things have to be right. And if they're not right, we can't move forward. That's where OCD comes from. It's all fear-based, emotional management strategies. And so here's how it happens. You can see here, like we have a sympathetic nervous system. It's called your fight or flight response, right? It's fight, freeze, or flight. And what happens is something triggered that between the time you were born and the time you were 12 or 13. So it could have been trauma. You could have been beaten physically. You could have been emotionally abused. You could have been sexually abused. You could have had a near-death experience. You could have had somebody close to you die unexpectedly. Right? Those are the big T's. Sometimes it's the little T's. People make judgments about you. I've got a client who literally, they rented a home in a nice neighborhood, and one of the girls came up to him when he was 8 and said, "You don't own your house. You rent your house. You guys are a renter." Right? Or, sometimes it's an observation that you make where somebody's got nicer clothes than you, or the kid next door has a pool and a basketball hoop and you don't have that. And so you make some judgments. Hey, I'm not good enough. Or Sometimes you were bullied. Bullying is terrible for our self-esteem. Okay, like you can be bullied at home. You're not good enough. Why are you such a knucklehead? You're so bad. You can be bullied at school, right? When you're up to the age of high school, all the way through high school, you spend most of your time at home or at school. But especially during like ages like 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 12, 13, when a lot of this happens, we're looking for approval at home and at school. And if we don't get approval at home, and if we don't get approval at school, we get to the point where we need approval. We want it so badly. And it's okay to want approval, right? It's okay to want to be approved. But when your need for approval, your need for acceptance, your need for, wanting to feel good is put on other people, and it's so strong that you can't get around it, that's when procrastination kicks in. I'm not going to be accepted. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be embarrassed. Okay. Something like that. And that alone will keep us from moving forward to do the things we need to do, no matter how badly we need to do them. Right. The same reason that you don't go to the gym consistently is the same reason that you don't keep a calendar, is the same reason you don't start projects. It's the same reason you don't finish projects. It's the same reason that you don't stick to a diet. It's the same reason that you have relationships that don't last. You keep dating the wrong person or whatever. It's because of your self-worth, your self-esteem, what you believe to be true about who you are and what you can and can't do and what you're worth. And that doesn't mean if you have low self-esteem in one area, you have low self-esteem in every area, but there's enough of that low self-esteem, that lack of self-worth in your life that you cannot, will not, won't, whatever it is, move forward and continue to do what you need to do to power through to get things done. Right? It could be, these hidden identities we create for ourselves, not being good enough, not being deserving. If you had alcoholic parents who didn't pour into you, or if you had one parent who divorced the other parent, your mother or father married multiple people, or your stepdad or stepmom treated you like crap, or you had a parent die, it could be anything. Or it could have just been one thing that somebody said to you. I have a client who, beautiful woman, wonderful woman, super smart, very industrious, very entrepreneurial, wore dress suits to gym class in 5th grade. Because she thought it would look cool. And the kids made fun of her like unmercilessly for months. And as she grew up, she became a perfectionist because she figured if I look perfect, nobody can say anything about me. Hair extensions, thousands of dollars on clothes, thousands of dollars on purses, eyelashes, expensive makeup, Mercedes, everything, just so that she wouldn't be judged. But the fact of the matter is that when you're a perfectionist, you're guaranteed to fail because there's no such thing as perfect. Okay. It could also be a learned belief system. Your parents said, hey, you know what? Don't try anything, Bob, because the Johnsons, nothing good ever happens to the Johnsons. Or your mother says to you as a woman, don't trust men because men, all they want is sex and there's no good men out there because your father was a bad person. Or your dad says, hey, we always fail. We're meant to be this type of person, so don't try this. Or, you got smacked in the head on the way out the door. You know what? You're a dummy. You're a knucklehead. You're no good. And your parents don't pour into you and build you up. So any one of these things could go ahead and trigger our sympathetic nervous system, and you can either fight back. So you fight, like Frank Shamrock, professional UFC fighter. He kicked the crap out of people for a living. His job was to beat people up, and his dad beat him like crazy when he was a kid. And he's like, you know what? You're not going to hurt me because I'm not going to let you hurt me because I'm going to kick the shit out of you if you have to. Lewis Howes, big entrepreneur, says the same thing. He just fought because he didn't want to get hurt. But if you're a procrastinator, if you're somebody that runs, if you're somebody that avoids and goes into avoidance strategies, and finds other things to do, though something's important, you probably were a flighter. You probably ran. So when that pain came up, when that potential to get judged came up, that potential to be embarrassed, to be thought less of, whatever came up, you just avoided it at all costs. And it started as like this little seedling, like literally like the seed of doubt got planted when you were a kid. And every time something come up where that fear was triggered, you'd be like, oh my God, I got to avoid this. Water, weed, water, weed. We got a seedling, then we got a plant, then we got a bush, then we got a bigger bush. And by the time you're older, it's like a sequoia tree. You know what I'm saying? I mean, literally would have tons of work to do and would lay on the couch. I remember filling out my applications for college on Christmas break. I should have been screwing around with my friends, and I was filling out applications for college on Christmas break my senior year. Like, I remember, like, in the springtime when it was nice outside and kids were outside playing, and I was doing homework because I waited till the last minute. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. But I kept doing it because that was my programming, because I had horrible self-esteem. And so I didn't believe that I was worthy of doing the things I needed to do to get the results that I wanted. Okay. Does this resonate with you guys? Can you guys give me a yes? Can you give me a a thumbs up. Can you give me a absolutely? Just am I hitting the mark with any of you here? Does any of this make sense to you? And the reason I'm asking, because a lot of people don't really see that their procrastination comes from that, but for most people, that's where it comes from. It comes from that whole area. Okay. So any questions before I go on here? Anyone? Bueller? Right. So, somebody said here, I notice I stutter sometimes, even minutes after I've been rejected by a prospect, especially if they're rude or unkind. It's a trauma response and hard to break out of. Well, you can break out of it, but the fact is, it doesn't say anything, but the fact is that awareness of that is half the battle. Realizing that happens is half the battle. Now let's go find out what it is, and let's go ahead and reframe things, and let's reprogram your brain and have you work on making that go away, which you can. And by the way, none of us is stuck with ourselves being a procrastinator. I used to make jokes about being an adrenaline junkie and waiting to finish right at the deadline. And honestly, addictions, that becomes an addiction. Anything you do that creates a chemical response in your body, food, sex, drugs, pornography, alcohol, changes the chemical makeup of our body. We get addicted to those chemicals, which is why we keep doing those things. Right. So if you're an adrenaline junkie and you want to get that adrenaline, and waiting to the last minute stoked your fire, then you can get addicted to that. It becomes an avoidance strategy that meets a very strong chemical need. So absolutely. A lot of this is hitting the nail on the head for me. Okay, great. Thank you. Again, thumbs up, anything, just let me know that I'm on the right page here. If you have any questions, let me know. And if not, we're just going to keep moving on. So here's the deal. Can you do anything about this? Well, the great news is that you absolutely can do something about this. Okay. And this is the strategy that I use to help people overcome sales call reluctance. But sales call reluctance is all about the same thing that procrastination is about, which is, not believing in yourself in certain areas of your life, having low self-esteem, having low self-worth, having imposter syndrome, having challenges with, moving forward because you just don't feel good about who you are. And a lot of us could never put our finger on, we can't put our finger on it, right? And so in order to overcome procrastination, in order to make it a thing of the past, in order to not let it rule your life, either intentionally or unintentionally, you got to go find out what caused it. And what caused it was something here between the time you were born and the time you were 12 or 13, when most of this stuff gets formed. It happened here, and it doesn't have to be huge. Your parents could have been perfectionists. Your parents could have said things to you unintentionally that they didn't mean to say. Right. It's something as silly as like, oh, you're big. You're a big kid. You're so big, not explaining what big is. And you think big, I'm fat. It could be something tiny. So it doesn't have to be a big T trauma. It could be a little T trauma. It could be something small that sprouted from a little seedling into this ginormous tree. Okay. So identify it. Let's go ahead and let's identify exactly the source. I'm going to give everybody a quick little strategy here on identify that source tonight. When we're done here, I want you to go get 2 note cards, and on it, I just want you to write the same question. What is the source of my procrastination? Or what is the source of my perfectionism? Or what is the source of whatever it is? My fear, my anxiety, okay? Your brain remembers everything that you've tasted, touched, smelled, heard, or seen. Anything that the 5 senses have been involved in, it remembers it. And it stacks it like a sandwich in most cases, but it's in there. So if you want to find out what you need to work through, to work over, to get over, you need to go ahead and do that, and just keep 1 card with you, put another card next to your nightstand. And for the most part, you should all know by the end of the day. In fact, I'm willing to bet that some of you have already figured out where it's come from just by the first 28 minutes we've been on here since I started talking about this. Okay. So it's there. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a train wreck of a life and a childhood like I had. It could be something very small. Somebody could have said one thing to you one time. Like literally, I had a client who, new kid moved into town down the road. He went and visited the kid like 3 or 4 times in a row over days. Like the 5th day he goes over there, and the kid's older brother says, Bob, you don't have to keep coming over here. And immediately that struck a chord with him to the point where he felt he was bothering people, and he hasn't been able to do his job as a salesperson because every time he calls somebody or thinks he's got to talk to somebody about a sale, he starts thinking that he's going to bother them. It could be something that minuscule, something what appears to be that insignificant. Once you become aware of it, identify it, then you kind of go into this what I call 3-step process of awareness, define, and identify, right? And so, and then for that matter, also becoming mindful. And so what do I mean by that? Well, when it's time to go do something that you don't want to do, there's actually an emotion that comes up. There's a guy named T. Harv Eker. He's a a Canadian personal development expert, and he calls it TFAR. So there's thoughts, feelings, actions, results. You get a thought, you get triggered, that creates a feeling. That feeling then creates either action or inaction, right? Not doing something is still an action, and then you get a result. The problem is when you go into avoidance strategies like procrastination, perfectionism, or addictions, you go thought right to action. You skip the feeling, and then you get the result, right? So you go thought, oh, there's that thought. Oh, let's not do that feeling. Then let's go right to action or inaction, and we get the result. And so when you're getting ready to do something and you start procrastinating, there's actually an emotion that comes up. And quite honestly, there's likely a physical response that comes with it. When I get anxious, I start pushing my toes into the ground, or I start forcing air out of my lungs, or I tighten my chest, or I tighten my back, or I start blinking a lot. Okay. And so when you can become aware of when that feeling comes up, then you kind of identify it and define it. Wait a second, there's that feeling. What is that? That's anxiety. Okay, I was put down a lot as a child, or I was teased a lot as a child about X, Y, and Z. And now I'm afraid that by doing this, I'm not worthy of the outcome. Or you have a little conversation with yourself, and then you go into what we call mindfulness, or being present. Okay, you become mindful and you become present. And so part of the way we do that is we do mindful meditation. Okay, like if you want, you can sit squat legged and hold your fingers and go om, right? You can do that. But I like mindful meditation. If you go to the mindful movement on YouTube, there's a couple that has a whole, like, thousands of videos on mindfulness for anxiety, mindfulness for procrastination, mindfulness, whatever. They got 2-minute videos, 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos, 2-hour videos. And basically they take you through a mindfulness exercise. Okay. And that mindfulness exercise is teaching your brain not to let thoughts enter it without your permission. Because right now, since you were born, somebody said something, went into your brain. It was like a savings account with no ability to withdraw, like a CD almost, right? Oh, there's that emotion. Come on in, do what you got to do. There's that thought. Come in, do what you got to do. And most of us don't stop those thoughts. We don't prevent them from taking root. But you have the ability to do that. And honestly, if you do regular mindfulness meditation, if you do 10, 15 minutes a day of sitting back and listening to her and focusing just on your breath, right? You can't be worried about the future and what's anxious. You can't be worried about the past and depression. You're just focusing on what's happening right now, focusing on your breath. And then as a thought enters your mind, you're like, thought, and just let it go. Eventually your brain takes over. Literally your brain will stop doing, it'll start doing the work for you. So some of those disempowering thoughts, some of those crazy emotions don't come in and take root and keep you from letting things wreak havoc for you. Okay. But it takes some time. It takes some practice. So rather than just letting the emotion come in and take root and stop you in your tracks, and like people have said here, not even getting started, you're like, oh, there it is. Wait a second. Oh, there it is. There's that feeling. What is that? That's when that's from. Let's just chill for a second here. You can do box breathing, which is in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. When you start regulating your breathing, it regulates your blood flow and it slows your brain down, and it allows your brain to process what's going on and then let it pass so you can keep going forward. It takes practice. It's not going to happen after one time. You need to work on it regularly, but it'll have a huge impact on your brain. The next thing about reprogramming your brain for success is that you've got to go ahead and start changing the narrative in your mind. Okay, I like Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. It's basically, it's a 1-hour ritual every morning where you scribe. He calls it scribing, which is journaling, and then exercise, and then affirmations, and then visualization, and then and then meditation. Okay, and then reading, and you start saying affirmations to yourself every day for 5 to 10 minutes. Right? If you need a lot of other people's approval, a great affirmation is, you know what? I don't need anybody's approval but my own. I'm good enough as I am, and I don't need anybody's approval but my own, right? If you're a procrastinator, and you want to work on that, say, listen, I take action because I'm worthy of the results that will happen when I take action. I take action because I'm worthy of the results that will happen when I take action, okay? So you got to start saying things to yourself and recrafting that message, because here's the thing. You've been doing it your entire life up to now. And if you got, as Zig Ziglar calls it, stinking thinking, whatever you've been saying to yourself, you believe. So if you say new stuff to yourself, you start believing new stuff. Read a book about procrastination. Read a book about not feeling good about who you are. If you've got issues with the need for approval, go read Brene Brown's Gifts of Imperfection. That whole book is about accepting people for who they are, and accepting yourself for who they are, and not feeling like you have to do what other people tell you. Best time I've spent online in a long time. I appreciate you sharing this information. You're a sweetheart. Thank you. Okay. You got to take control of what's going into your brain, and you got to get the stuff out of there that's not helping you. Okay. Next, what drives you, right? If we're aimless in life, we don't know what drives us. We don't know what we're excited about. We don't know what's happening and where we want to go. There's no reason for us not to procrastinate, right? So, make a list of everything that you'd ever want to be, do, or have. It doesn't matter if you have the money or not, if you have the time or not. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? And pick one of those things and say, okay, if I'm going to make this happen in my life, what do I have to master? What emotionally do I have to master? What physically do I have to master? What intellectually do I have to master? Right? If Lisa told you ride horses, right? So, what I'm saying, you want to be a master horse rider or a master equestrian. There's a syntax, there's all kinds of stuff you need to learn to be amazing at riding horses or being with horses, right? It's the same thing for everything else. You want to, let's just say you want to find a perfect mate for yourself and you want to have a meaningful relationship with somebody. Well, what needs to happen? What do I have to master? Well, I've got to master, how to be a healthy person. I've got to master how to communicate with people. I've got to master boundaries. I've got to master asking for what I want from somebody. I've got to master, not, basically compromising with people when necessary, right? And then what does autonomy look like? So now that I've mastered all these things, what does it look like when I've mastered all them? Autonomy in a relationship. My needs of intimacy are met. I meet the other person's needs for intimacy. We have great conversations. Nobody yells at the other person. We don't get in fights with each other, whatever it is, but that's what it looks like. And then you've got to figure out what your why is, right? People forever, what is my why? What is my why? What is my why? So Simon Sinek created what he calls his golden circles. And if you Google Simon Sinek and golden circles, he's got like this target and it says what, how, and why. All right. So your kids, a new car, a vacation, retirement, lots of money, writing a book, foundation, lose weight, gain weight, muscles, exercise. Those are all whats. Your children are a what. They are not a why. Okay. But the why comes from the how. So Sinek's formula is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at what was painful for me. Right. I don't want my kids to live paycheck to paycheck until they're 50 years old, until they figure out like I did. I've blown through $5 million. There was years I was making $200,000-$300,000 a year. I was living paycheck to paycheck because I did not understand how to work with money. And I worked in the mutual fund industry. I did not have a good attitude towards money. I had a poverty consciousness, okay? And so my kids are not going to be like that. The two oldest ones have credit cards. They all have debit cards. My two oldest ones are working on their credit already. They're 20. They've been since they were 18. My 22-year-old daughter just bought a car. With the income she's making from the money we give her and from her job, she just bought like a really nice, Nissan Murano or something, 75,000 miles. And she got like a crazy good interest rate, like 6% at the time. So, and that's, and so my kids are going to understand money. My son's getting his real estate license. I'm going to help him build, and we made an agreement. I'm going to help you build a real estate portfolio, and that real estate portfolio is going to take care of you and your sisters. Right? You're going to make sure that some of the money that comes in there, and we're going to put a trust together, that is going to take care of them so they never have to worry about money, and that they understand the importance of investing and taking care of themselves, right? So the pain for me is being a knucklehead with my money since I've been being addicted to money for a long time. And then I'm going to impact the outcome and contribute X. I'm going to contribute my knowledge, my time, my energy to helping them build financial awareness and financial soundness and an abundance mentality so that they never have to worry about money for the rest of their lives. So it's, what's the pain? And then what can I contribute towards changing the outcome over? That's what your why is. Okay. Now here's the problem. A lot of people can't figure out what their why is because they're spending their entire life avoiding pain, running away from things that are driving them crazy. And when you're focusing on running away from things and you're focusing on avoiding pain, it's hard to make room and think about what you want for the future. So you got to do some work. This identifying these first three things you got to start working on and making some space in your head so these other things can come up. Okay. Now, here's the deal. If you haven't gotten my book, I'd love for you to get it. You're not required to get it. Yes, this is a shameless plug. Part of the reason I want people to get it is because the majority of people who have read it have said to me, hey, I felt like I was reading a story about my own life. Okay. And if you want, and I want people to have hope. I want people to believe that good things can happen for them. And as messed up as my life was, and as many bad choices and mistakes as I made, I was able to overcome them starting at the age of 50 and 51. So I want you to know that no matter how old you are, no matter how many bad things have happened for you, no matter how many crappy things have happened, it's not too late to go ahead and make the changes to live the life you want. And if procrastination is plaguing you, you can do something about it. Okay. Here's the deal. I offer this when you join my group, but I want to put it in here. If you go to my page, phonesalessecrets.com, you click on there, everybody can get a free 15-minute consultation with me. I will spend zero time trying to sell you something, but if you spend 15 minutes with me, I will help you identify what the issue is so you can at least get to work on it. If you want to talk about going to a class of mine, that's great. But the purpose of that call is to help you get clear so you can start having some hope and get excited about the fact that there's something you can do about it so that you're not stuck with it, okay? And then here's the last thing. I got this from Marvel's Punisher movie. It says you can hide your identity, but you can't hide who you are, okay? You can push things all the way down as long as you want to, but when something traumatic comes up or something like, what do you call it? Pandemic comes up, it rips the lid off of it, and then all the stuff that needs to be dealt with is going to keep coming back up. And look, if you have trouble sleeping, if you have anxiety and you have other issues where your brain is running crazy, that means that there's things that you need to deal with. Like your subconscious is begging you to let these emotions out and deal them. Okay. Any questions? Who's got questions? Lay them on here. Lay them out. I'd love questions, comments, concerns, any thoughts, any feedback. Listen, grab 15 minutes and let's talk. You grab 15 minutes in my calendar. We'll sit down. We'll chat. I know, I've been able to help a lot of people overcome a lot of issues, and sometimes a 15-minute conversation can change your life. Any feedback? Any questions? No? Well, that's all I got for today. Thanks for hopping on. We got another one next week. Some of it's going to be the same, but we're going to talk about, whatever's next week. I forget what it is, but you'll see it. But, share this with your friends. The recording is going to be up. It'll be on YouTube. And thank you for joining me. It'll be on YouTube, and it'll also be on a link to my calendar. If you go to phonesalessecrets.com, you can get 15 minutes on my calendar there. Okay. And but hop in and let's chat. And in the meantime, a credit, Mike, procrastinating, great stuff. Thank you. Cool. Yeah. Let me know if you need help. Let's talk. I love you guys. I appreciate you. The recording will be up here and Phone Sales Secrets in a minute, and it'll be on YouTube as well. You guys take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Be well. Hey there, this is Wally Bressler, and on behalf of my guest today, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of Own the Phone. If you'd like more information on how to overcome sales call reluctance, procrastination, and self-sabotage, and become an expert on the phone, go to www.phonesalessecrets.com. And if you'd like my free course on how to overcome sales call reluctance, please go to www.phonesalessecrets.com.